Too many days in the darkness.
Welcome to Prevention is Cure, brought to you by precure.com, the podcast which brings you the latest in science and practice and challenging mainstream medicine and finding new and exciting ways of having a happier and healthy life. This series is looking specifically at mental health. We've become really concerned about the lack of translation of what science knows into what medicine does. In most societies, including the one I live in, 1 in 5 of us will have a serious mental health problem at some stage. The infrastructure, the practice, the gap between treatment and best practice is massive. This podcast series aims to do something about it. Prevention is Cure. I'm your host, Professor Grant Schofield. Today I'm interviewing an interesting fellow called Dave Wood. I read about Dave in the newspaper and his work with some of the top mixed martial artists or MMA athletes in the world. His work with world-class surfers and Olympians, especially Ella Williams, lives near where I live in Tairua. She lives in Whangamata. And he was talking my language. He was talking about cold. He was talking about hot. He was talking about the mental approach to well-being and performance. He was talking about the nutritional approach. He was talking about hormesis and cold. And so I sat down with Dave and picked his brain and met a switched-on ambulance officer who took all the physiology he knew and applied it to a whole new situation. First of all, to sort out his own journey with chronic pain, but to enter that world of where you really know what you need to be talking about, of elite performance and its intersection with health. You're going to love Dave Wood.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight.
Hey, Dave, the first thing I want to ask you about is you're trained in paramedicine, and you know, in public health we often talk about the problem of the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. You were the ambulance, and now all of a sudden you find yourself still doing a little bit of work there, but you've really transformed into this whole Woody's movement studio, and then a sort of whole lot of holistic stuff. And I guess you're not just the ambulance at the top of the cliff; you're the fence, the guide, the thing. How do you transition from one to another, and what even gets you from one to another?
Yeah, I've worked on the ambulance now for 12 years, and for the last 5 years as an intensive care paramedic. So we see everything and anything that you can imagine in the pre-hospital setting. So that ranges from a broad age group, from the very young to the very old, and then a whole lot of different clinical presentations, from very acute unwellness to someone with a stub toe.
Would you, in the more serious end, is there broad categories, like there's a whole bunch of people that have ended up with the acute part of chronic conditions. There's a whole bunch of people with trauma. And then there's a bunch of people with possibly self-inflicted trauma, I guess it probably is self-inflicted in the sense that they've tried to harm themselves. And there's these mental health issues as well. Do you want to talk about how those?
Yeah, I think 80% of it is self-inflicted, whether it be sedentary lifestyle causing lifestyle disease, things like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome. These are things that are all preventable. It's been a real eye-opener working on the ambulance, because what we're seeing is, people are spending the last 20 years of their lives trapped in their bodies, on a cocktail of medication, and they're not living. That's not living. It's just dragging yourself that last 20 years when you're supposed to be enjoying yourself. And that is self-inflicted. That is, lifestyle decisions. And, and then we deal with, many acute events, heart attack, stroke, things like that. So it's a, We have quite a broad range of practice. We're very lucky in New Zealand as paramedics. Our medical director allows us the opportunity to have a very broad scope of practice, and you have a lot of independence working on the ambulance service. So you're making clinical decisions under high stress, high pressure situations. And as an intensive care paramedic, you have, I think it's over 30 drugs that you can administer. So it's starting to sort of become like taking the resus room of a hospital out into an ambulance and out into the community.
So how have you managed to be, I think you're still doing a day a week, paramedicine?
Yeah, I was talking to my boss on the phone then, about extending that out to one shift every 2 weeks. But up until 8 months ago, I was working full time on a frontline ambulance and running the workshop as well. And then the workshop really picked up, so it got to the point where I went part time, and I've been doing 1 to 2 days a week on a frontline ambulance. So this has been my job for the last sort of 11, 12 years.
And so this transition to the What is Movement workshop, I guess that's what you're talking about, right? And then the broad range of that work that you're doing now. Can you describe that? And how does that even start? How did you even start that?
Yeah, so it was, I guess, my background, I don't have any sort of background in sports science or working in a gym or anything like that. But what I do have is a very, I guess, in-depth understanding of human behaviour and also of, anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology and pharmacology. It's all part of the degree that I did to become a paramedic. And when I started, the workshop started as a result of my own dysfunction. I had bilateral hip surgery and ended up sort of getting to a point with that. I developed chronic pain and having to really solve the problem myself rather than relying on other people like physios and muscular therapists and surgeons and hip specialists. And that sort of started my interest in muscle imbalance. And we all have muscle imbalance secondary to, what we call complacent adaptation and specialization. We weren't designed to sit for 8 hours, that's for sure. And so we all have this muscle imbalance. And so I got really interested in that and started working with clients who had muscle imbalance and chronic pain and stress and anxiety. And then I started working with athletes. And, it's just been, I guess, just like a natural progression. What I thought when I got into the field of working with athletes, that a lot of the stuff, around breathing and sleep hygiene and recovery would be in place, but it's not. It's not given enough attention and respect.
Did that surprise you that they weren't doing this stuff already? They were talking about high performance now.
Yeah, it absolutely surprised me because, like I said, I don't come from a field of high performance, and I thought that this stuff, would all be in place. And it, I started working with these fighters, and it wasn't there. The breathing training wasn't there, and then I thought, well, it must be in these other sports. And then I looked into that, and it wasn't there either. And it's, the thing is, we're just, as you know, we are just a whole lot of body systems. That's what we're made up of, a whole lot of different body systems that work together to form the human body. And we can tap into each of those body systems and train them individually. And what we see with most athletes is they're spending a lot of time, energy, and focus adapting the muscular and cardiovascular system, very little time focused on the breathing system or the nervous system. And those are the two systems that are most important in order to remain calm and composed and focused under pressure. So
it's just sort of the immune system's connected to that as well, I guess, as well, right?
Exactly. Well, it's all, as you know, it's all connected. But the crazy thing is like when I started working with these fight athletes, is they'd come in and you'd get a guy or a girl that would have incredible cardiovascular capacity, but terrible breathing. And so how is that possible? How is it possible to have very good cardio, but, not very good breathing capacity? And, the thing is that you can, but you're going to put a lot of stress onto the cardiovascular system. You're going to put a lot of stress onto the immune system. It's going to have a ripple over effect into your sleep and recovery, and you're going to start predisposing yourself to injury. And once we focus in and build up an athlete's or a human's breathing capacity, it has a ripple-on effect into every facet of performance and into every other body system.
So I want to get into the breathing a bit with you, if that's all right. But what I'm most curious about at this very moment, and I wonder if other people are as well, is how do you get your first high performance clients? How does that even happen? Especially in fight sports. So these guys are pretty intense, right? They just take a random ambulance driver and a paramedic rather, and away you go.
Yeah, it's a tricky. I guess like coming into this environment with when you start to talk breathing or holistic health, you can be very quickly labelled and sort of just pushed aside. And so it's about bringing this stuff, the language, the terminology, the programming into a performance environment. So when we're talking about breathing, we shouldn't be talking about saying things like breathe into your belly, because what does that mean? So we have to, I think, by changing the language and also being able to get on the same level as people, then it's much more likely that you're going to be taken seriously. But getting, I guess, like I don't know how I got into the training fight athletes. It wasn't because that's like a big part of the clientele that we were working with. It wasn't something that I targeted or sort of I sort of thought I'll just work with these fighters, because I'm open to work with all athletes and all, it doesn't, not selective there, but I think the fight athletes are open to this, to change into new ways of doing things, because I don't think they're bound by as many restrictions as other athletes. If you want to compare that to like rugby or league or soccer, where, I mean, you just watch an interview of these guys, the fighters come on, they say whatever they want to say, they say what's on their mind, they don't hold back. And that's so refreshing in a world now where everyone is just so worried about what they're going to say. And, is it going to affect the sponsorship? And I mean, you watch an interview with a rugby player, it's boring. It's boring because they can't, and you can see they're holding back. They want to say things, the coaches want to say things, but it's all red taped and it's all restricted. So that it's so refreshing working in that with those fighters, because, I think they're more open and they don't have so many restrictions to what they can and can't do.
And then surfing, I understand because you lived in Piha and it's one of the best spots in the world, really, that's why you would become involved with high-performance surfing.
Yeah, again, it's just, this all just started just working, through word of mouth. You work with one person. If you offer, something that's sustainable and that resonates with people, then you're going to get that ripple-on effect. And surfing, I've been involved in surfing since I was 5 years old, and so I understand surfing intimately. And the thing with New Zealand surfing is that we don't have good structures in place in terms of training. And in terms of, these surfers that are coming out of New Zealand, I guess, to really make it, you have to go overseas. But we need to start getting these kids, these surfers, because we have so much, we have a huge talent pool here. New Zealand is a coastal country. And so we've got this huge talent pool. We need to tap into that, and we need to get these kids at a young age and get them, training or serious about training and understanding why training is important to optimize performance. And I think once we do that, once we put those systems in place, then we'll see a lot more talent come out of New Zealand.
Yeah, great stuff. So let's talk about the breathing, and I guess we'll talk about diet and your movement and muscle and balance stuff a bit after that. But that's what really caught my attention, reading about your work, is that, and then sometimes with your different types of temperature as well. Could you just take us through how you got into that, what you do, and why you think it's effective? Yeah,
the breathing training is something that, when I had this bilateral hip surgery and I developed chronic pain and I was trying to get myself out of dysfunction, when you have pain, it affects your nervous system. It upregulates your nervous system, and that was affecting my sleep and all facets of life. And one of the last bits of the puzzle was really the breathing. What I found, I was driving to Napier, and my back and my hips were pretty sore on these long drives. And I was listening to this podcast, a lady called Dr. Belisa Vranic, and she was talking about this breathing and how you could use this breathing to manipulate pain or to nullify pain. And she gave, just a very simple breathing exercise, and I did it. And I did it for 5-10 minutes just sitting there, and I instantly felt very relaxed. And what I started noticing is when I had more awareness around my own breathing was that around pain, you tend to breath hold and you tend to brace your body, and I was doing that a lot. And so I actually had a breathing pattern disorder myself. I was also, I think I was mouth breathing a lot.
And you could be completely unconscious of that, right? That was just, you weren't
you can
doing anything with your breath. It was just ended up that way.
Exactly, because breathing is part or is innovated by our autonomic nervous system. It's called the autonomic nervous system because it innovates things in our bodies that we don't have to think about: blood vessel diameter, digestion, heart rate. We don't think about these things. They just happen. It's the same with the breathing, but the breathing is different because we can take conscious control of our breathing. Yes, it's innovated by the autonomic nervous system, but right now I can hold my breath. I can breathe faster. I can slow my breath down. I can prolong the exhale phase of my breath. And so all these incredible things that we can do with the breath to elicit a calm state in our body and to elicit a focused state. And that for sport performance, I mean, that is the essence of sport performance, is focus and, mental focus and, sustained mental focus and being calm in these high pressure situations. And yeah, that's where the breathing training really is very powerful.
And so you talked about being a nose breather, you talked about holding your breath, you talked about bracing yourself. Tell us about that. And how did you easily change that? What does a simple set of breathing exercises look like?
The biggest, when we work with athletes or just people around the breathing, the biggest change we see is when you just bring awareness to it. So when you tell someone to go away, and I want you to be aware of your breathing for the next 3 days. What is when you feel fear, apprehension, anxiety, tension, whatever emotion, if you just tap into your breathing, what is your breathing doing? Once you create awareness around it, you can create change. So that's for me, that was a big part of it, is actually just being aware that about this breathing system that we have, this respiratory system that we can focus in on and adapt. And and so I guess that's the biggest part of it. But we break the training down into 3 pillars, into the mechanics of breathing, so getting better access to the diaphragm, starting to train the respiratory muscles, the in-breath and the out-breath. And you can't train those breathing muscles any other way because of the way that they work in unison when you breathe is totally unique from anything else. So it's not like you can do core exercises to train your breathing. You have to train your breathing to train your breathing. And you can do that, and that's around the mechanics of breathing. And then we use the breathing. The other pillar is the calm, using the breathing to create calm, to elicit a calm state in terms of your nervous system, activating that parasympathetic state, that state part of your nervous system that promotes rest and recovery. And you can do that by slowing down your breathing rate. And there's a whole lot of other, I guess there's a lot of nuance in there, but the third pillar is CO2 tolerance work. And the easiest way to describe this is that free divers will train CO2 tolerance tables, breath hold work, so that they can dive deeper. They can dive to 100 meters. The athletes, we want them to, or we're trying to train CO2 tolerance work so that at any given level of exertion, their breathing is lighter and more controlled. And that has a huge effect on endurance. It has a huge effect on mental focus, because if you're breathing fast and upper chest, using these big muscle groups, then you're going to tire quickly. And it's going to agitate your mind when you breathe fast.
You know what's interesting to me is I got to nearly 50 years of age. I'd done a few degrees, including a PhD in physiology and psychology. I've been interested in what keeps us well our whole life. And it's only in the last few years I've really understood anything much about this. In fact, my naivety ran to the point where I thought there was something wrong with my nose because I couldn't breathe through it very easily. And I had something different than everyone else. It was just sort of blocked. And I didn't even understand that there was this ultradian rhythm of that, one nostril is always slightly more blocked than the other. That's a normal pattern of breathing. And then just switching to nose breathing, and predominantly how quickly that cleared this generally blocked nose, how obvious it was that this was connected to the sympathetic nervous system activation, and that's been a known thing for ages. And then you can go slightly deeper and go, well, there's a thing called the Bohr effect. Well, when you get slightly more CO2 in your blood, it becomes more acidic, which sounds really bad, but actually means that the oxygen lets go from the hemoglobin at the tissues more readily. And these were discoveries made mid last century and are well known, but haven't made it to society at all. and it takes people like you to come along and draw that to our attention.
Yeah, the first thing is around that nasal congestion. There's the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's, I guess, the best example is with a joint. If you don't take a joint through its full range of motion, its full expression of potential, then that joint's going to seize up and you're going to lose that range. And it's the same. What we see is these people are coming in, they're not using their nose. And one of the big things they say is, well, it just feels constantly congested up there. You often hear, I get a lot of upper respiratory tract infections, sinusitis. When you tell these people to go away and be conscious of their breathing, and I want you to breathe through your nose during rest, recovery, and light exercise, they come back the following week and they're like, I cannot believe how much it's cleared up. I thought that it was just chronically congested, and I've been trying these nasal rinses, and you just need to use the thing. That's what it's designed for. It's designed to breathe through. So if you're not using it, it's going to be inflamed.
So you literally got people trying to rinse their nose out to try and clear it out, when all you actually have to do is breathe out of it, right?
Yeah, I had a client who came into the gym last week, and he said, look, I've been getting the sinusitis, and I've been to the doctor. He's told me to use the neti pot to flush it out. I've been doing that. I'm taking this. I said to him, just try breathing through your nose for 3 days and watch the change. And it's the same with athletes that come in with a deviated septum as a result of a previously broken nose. And that's going to add more restriction to airflow, but it's the same thing. You can adapt. The body will adapt to that. It's, I guess, part of since industrialization and the way, I guess, even a long time before industrialization, the way that we have adapted to stress, to the food that we eat, that's having a ripple-on effect, and we're seeing that in our breathing. The stress, 1 in 5 people in New Zealand have anxiety. Well, that's a nervous system thing, and if your nervous system is upregulated, if you're an anxious person, then it's going to affect your breathing. Your breathing is going to be faster, it's going to be more upper chest, and then that style of breathing will feed into anxiety. So what you're feeling physically will affect you up here, and what's going on up here will affect you physically. So it's all tied in.
The medical system. You're a part of it, actually. The fact that this hasn't made it to medicine, what do you make of all that?
I think it's. I think this stuff should be being taught at school before even being taught at medical school. It should be being taught at school. We should know about this stuff. There's a kid I was speaking to. I was walking my niece along the beach the other day, and I stood on a sharp shell, and I said, that was sore. And she said, just breathe. And I turned to her and I said, what do you mean by that? And she was like, just breathe. And she said, it will make you calm.
Huh. Had you told her that? She just came up with that on her own?
She came up with that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and so I asked her where she learnt that, and it was, she said, at school. So, this is a 8-year-old, a 7-year-old girl. These kids are so, this is when we should be teaching this stuff so they understand it. But we don't teach it at school. So,
yeah, it's interesting. One thing I've noticed at lecturing at the university that's changed in the 25 odd years I've been teaching there is kids, smart, well put together people for all intents and purposes. You look at them, got everything going for them. Then I'm getting so many now, and it's like, so-and-so won't be able to do the exam. They're having to drop out of the degree or class because of their anxiety.
Mm.
And it was never a thing. It hasn't been a topic, and all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, it's just exploded up.
Mm.
And I guess one of the things that we see is that the major medical treatment is SSRIs.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible that we are just stuck in this medical model, which is so far from addressing the root cause of the problem. So far. And in fact, those medications are great for a small percentage of people, I think, who really need it. But as a standalone, it's not going to solve the problem, is it? Because the problem is physical and mental, and we have to address those mental and physical components. And the breathing, as you know, is a huge part of that. And look, there are so many, there are so many great things out there that we could be talking about, about addressing exposure to low-level sunlight in the morning and how that activates the release of cortisol and sets our biological clock for the release of melatonin in the evening. And then watching low-level sunlight in the evening stimulates the release of melatonin. And back in the day, before industrialization, we would have been exposed to this all the time, but we've gone 360 degrees away from, being connected with, it sounds like being a hippie, but the earth. And then we can talk about grounding, the concept of having your bare feet on the earth's surface. And I get clients in that have terrible anxiety, and you ask them, how many times in a week would your foot touch the earth's surface? And they sit there and they think about it. And sometimes they just say it doesn't. I go from the house to work, back to the house. If I go for a walk, then I've got my shoes on. And so they're actually never connected. And this is what is causing a huge problems, with inflammation and anxiety and depression. And we just need to take a step back and reconnect. But we're also busy, I guess. That's one of the big problems.
Although in that, New Zealand, and I think it's pretty much the same as in every other developed country in the world, there's a mental health crisis. We don't know what to do. We haven't got tools that are effective. I mean, I think the most positive thing I'd say about antidepressants, they provide some temporary relief for some people.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough as an effect, but it's not going to sort the problem. We in this country did an entire review on mental health. You won't see any of the things that you're talking about mentioned or enacted in either the review or the billions getting spent on the solution.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's going back to the SSRIs. How do you boost your serotonin? Well, there's so many marvelous ways, to boost serotonin naturally. Getting good sleep, eating good food, exposing yourself to nature.
So on exposing yourself to nature, what I wanted to pursue a bit further there is it's good getting your feet on the ground, but what about your whole self in nature?
Immersing yourself. There's a reason why if you go camping for 3 or 4 days, you come back and you feel like $1 million, right? You feel so relaxed. You feel like you've had a full reset. Well, when you go camping, you are fully connected. Is that what you were sort of? Yeah,
I guess so. I mean, that's what surfing is in many ways, isn't it? Surfing is in many ways is the ultimate way of you're going to actually literally be immersed in nature because you'll be under and in the water. I think the activity of being on a wave means that you are beautifully drawn into that moment.
Yeah,
because there's no other option.
Yeah, people often think that. I mean, surfers become obsessed about surfing. It's like you can never get it. You'll go for a surf, and the surf will be, the best surf you've had, but you'll never be content. You just want. It's like a drug. You want to go the next day, and then you as soon as you've had a good surf, you want to be back out there again. But it's not just about catching waves. It's like about being out in the ocean, exactly what you're talking about, and walking down the sand and watching. I often be surfing out there and watch the sun go down in the water, and it's like, man, what an incredible sport! What an incredible activity to pursue. And there's. That's what we need to, that's what we're talking about, reconnecting is about having these things in your life, whether it be surfing or, outdoor, running or mountain biking, whatever. It's all about reconnecting. And that's why these things feel so good.
So I read also somewhere that you've been using a bit of cold as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we've been using the, you don't have to venture too far into social media to see that the stuff's pretty, everyone's doing it, everyone's talking about it, cold water therapy. And to me, it is incredibly powerful because you're exposing yourself to stress. And people might be thinking, well, if we're already all stressed, what would be the benefit of exposing yourself to more stress? But this is good stress. Stress is not bad. We got to totally change our perception of stress. Stress is good. We need stress. It's our relationship with stress that has got out of whack, exposing yourself to stress and then controlling that stress is incredibly powerful for immune function. And getting in an ice bath is like one of the most stressful things you can do, because it puts your nervous system into that fight or flight sympathetic state. And then the whole thing about getting in there is like, okay, let's control that. How do we control the stress? You're not going to have any external tools to use when you're in the ice bath. You have to focus internally. And what do you have internally to deal with stress? Well, you have a very intricate system, your mind and your breathing, to be able to deal with stress. And when you learn to do that, when you learn to get in the ice bath and slow your breathing down, control your breathing rate and depth, relax your muscles, focus in your mind, some positive self-talk, some visualization, well, that has a ripple-on effect into every facet of life and performance.
And how did you get into that in the first place?
Wim Hof.
Yeah, the whole Wim Hof method. And I guess I think you also mentioned to me at another time we talked that you follow Dr. Andrew Huberman, the Huberman Labs.
Yeah, I'm very interested in
detailed physiology around that as well.
Yeah. But, I guess I say Wim Hof, but I mean, I've been swimming out here in the water since we were kids, and in winter you'll run down and you'll jump in the water and you'll get out. And everyone's done this. Everyone's like been to a lake or run into the lake or into the ocean in winter, and you get out and you feel incredibly pumped, And so it's like Wim Hof has brought this whole breathing ice bath stuff into the spotlight. But yeah, it's always been there. People have always gone in the cold water.
So how
people have always been drawn to that, exposing yourself to stress. People have always been drawn to that.
In fact, I think the Stoics back in Greek and Roman times talk about cold baths and the importance of those for your well-being. So it was a topic.
And the people, in what's the country where they're big on the sauna contrast?
Finland and North. Norway,
and they have some of the best rates of centurions and longevity in the world. And what are they doing? They're using the sauna every day. They're using the contrast therapy, getting in the sauna and jumping into the cold lakes or the snow. And we know now the research there is very clear around sauna use and its effect on so many different facets of health. And
that's been an interesting one for me, because I would normally go, you need to do an experiment or a trial. But when you look at the sort of dose of sauna and cold, especially sauna in those Scandinavian countries on death of all causes and myocardial infarction, fatal infarction. I mean, the effect is so big.
It's so pronounced.
It's not explainable by anything else, and it's like, wow, if you could choose a thing to do, that's
so potent.
Yeah. Hey, how cold does the water have to be in your opinion? Like, if you go down, imagine if you go to a creek or a waterhole somewhere near Piha, it's going to be around 10, 11. If you go into the water at Piha, it's going to be 12 or so. Is that cold enough?
I don't know the research. Yeah, I don't know the research around that. I don't know if there is. I
don't think there is.
Yeah, a very good guy that would be able to answer that question is Nigel Beach from Element Health.
Yeah.
He is very knowledgeable in that area. But for me, I don't think I actually enjoy more just going down in winter and jumping in the ocean here and spending 15 minutes just floating around in the ocean. And, the crazy thing is you get in there and it's very cold when you jump in. But after 5 minutes of moving around in there, it's like having a warm blanket over you. And you're looking back in at the beach and there's people walking along and they're all rugged up and you're just in the ocean, and just floating around, and it's such a liberating space. And I love doing it in the evening, and it's just, I don't know, like.
Is that the sort of brown fat activation stuff, do you reckon? Like this, almost like, when you first start and you haven't been doing cold for a while, it's actually a little bit tough. Once you get, I was down there yesterday, day before yesterday, same sort of thing on my side of the coast. I'm here in Takapuna, and it's like this sort of internal heater just buzzes off and away you go. Yeah,
it's all your perception around this stuff. If you know what it's like, if you're going down for a swim and you're telling yourself, oh God, it's going to be cold and horrible and this is terrible, well, you're not going to have a very good experience. But if you switch off to it's just cold water, it's just stress, and just switch off to it all. That's the great thing about like the work that we're doing with the athletes and getting them in the not just athletes, like we all need the stuff, but getting them in the ice bath is we have like a protocol that we use. We stand next to the ice bath, close the eyes, visualize, and you want to visualize how you want to be in the ice bath, very calm, and you can get quite intricate with your visualization. You're stepping over, that foot goes into the ice, you're immersing yourself, you're calm, you're controlling your breathing. You do that for 30 seconds, and then you change your perception. You just start changing the wording, and that's incredibly powerful in itself. And then you get in there, you do a body scan because you're normally sitting there like that. Well, that's going to keep you in that fight or flight state, that sympathetic state. You relax everything, go through, do your body scan, and then you take conscious control of your breathing, slow down the rate of your breathing, relax into the exhale. And then before you know it, you're sitting in 1-2 degree water and you're just very calm. And
are the athletes surprised at their ability to do that? Because you'll talk to a lot of people who haven't done cold water and they do actually object to it quite strongly, right? They're like, I could never do that. No,
I think the biggest surprise that you see is from people that have anxiety and people that have put up barriers to getting well. And these barriers, these comfort barriers, like we talk about this, all the good shit in life is on the other side of these barriers that we put up. Well, let's strip them down and get to the good shit. And on a micro level, the ice bath is everything about being uncomfortable. It's everything about breaking down those barriers. And when you get these people in there that have anxiety or depression and they're able to control the situation, control the environment, they get out and you see something switch. It's like, oh man, if I can be calm there, well, maybe I don't need all these barriers. Maybe I can be calm in other facets of my life.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's actually like you said, with the stress, I'm already stressed, so I'm going to go for some more stress. I've got anxiety. Now I'm going to put myself in something that really makes me anxious. I don't know who. Is there such a person in the world? Maybe it's you, Dave, who goes to and stands next to an ice bath and is thinking that they're just completely relaxed. There is a degree of anxiety no matter what. Is that your take on it?
I think you want that. I think you want to have the anxiety around it. You want to have the fear around it because then you want to bring that stuff in. That's
so the question is, how do you talk them into it? How do you get from A to B with someone with that level of anxiety? Because it doesn't make any sense to them initially, does it?
Yeah, it's all about, we shy away from explaining in-depth physiological concepts, and we shouldn't. We should be explaining these things that we're talking about to people, but explain it in a way that they understand. But it's all about just, man, you got to get on the same level as people. Whether it's someone that's coming in with anxiety or depression or they're stressed to all hell, or they're an athlete or they're a guy down, you got to get on the same level somehow. You got to, and then, it's just all about explaining it. This is why we're doing this. This is what stress is. Stress is not something that's bad. Stress is good. We need to have a good relationship with stress. We need to bring stress in, and use it to our advantage. And I think once they understand that and once they can, you explain these things, it becomes like, this is a good challenge.
It's an interesting thing there because, for example, Huberman's with this Huberman lab is deep physiology. We're talking Stanford neuroscientist, doctor, ophthalmologist as well, getting right into it, and it's massively popular with the lay public. On the other end, I'll talk to a medical oncologist and I'll say, did you mention diet or exercise? There's no real point. They won't do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I see what you're saying there because I guess, we're really fighting an uphill battle against people that are coming in and they want quick change. They're not, they don't understand like, okay, you got to get in the grind with the stuff. This is like 3 to 4 months of you doing consistent work. And people don't want that. They want something quick, and that's why they want the pill or they want the physio to fix them or the chiropractor. And it's actually, this is, 15, 20 years of ingrained behavior and patterns. It's going to take a little while. So, put your belt on and get ready for, a bit of a grind and to have some consistency in your life and have some accountability for what you're doing.
So getting to that side of things over and above the breath work and the cold and that sort of thing is the name of what you do, which is what is Movement Workshop. if we're talking about movement, what's your approach there? And can you just sort of talk a bit about that?
I think the approach with movement with most people is to go back to the fundamentals. I think we have so much imbalance, whether it be that you're an office worker and you're sitting for 8 hours a day, or you're a specialised athlete. And any specialisation will create imbalance. What we see a lot is this imbalance is then being loaded in a strength and conditioning environment. I think we need to go back, address the imbalance. And I guess that comes back to having good foundations with anything that we're doing, whether it be breathing or the muscular system or the cardiovascular system, is to have good foundations. And so that's a lot of the work that we do in the gym. I guess, we're definitely not specialised in strength and conditioning, but what is strength and conditioning? Well, sitting down and doing 2 minutes of focused breath work is strength and conditioning. That's the most potent form of strength and conditioning, is training your mind. So I think, we have this image when we talk about strength and conditioning of someone lifting, squatting and deadlifting. Well, for me, that's the 10% at that end. And we need to be back here, and we need to be getting the foundations really strong. And you'll see, in the athletic world, you'll see many athletes make it to the very top on poor foundations. But what do we see when they get to the top? They can't sustain it. And you see these, you see them fall and fall hard. And so, it's about creating those solid foundations so that you can build yourself up to the top and stay there.
Have you surprised yourself with this? Like, I just go, you've got into this, and it's just rocketing. And where's it going to go? Where do you see this going for you? I'm loving it, by the way. Like, just especially your background and where you've come to so quickly, and effectively, and working with Olympic and world athletes and world champions and whatnot. It's pretty cool. But this
thanks, Grant. I do find it. I just find life a crazy thing, and I've had that many experiences in my life. Like, I traveled for 10 years by myself, and I learned so much in that 10 years. I've had a crazy life, and I guess it's like, bringing all those life skills and, and then the 12 years of working on the ambulance and going through my own, bilateral hip surgery and chronic pain. And it's just bringing all this stuff in. And, 2 years ago, when I started the workshop, the workshop's just there. It's like 20 feet from my kitchen door, and it was just that. It was a natural garage, and it had all garage equipment in it. And I was, seeing the guy down the road with back pain. And then, fast forward 2 years, and we're it's like it's got really busy, and it's I don't know. I always feel like, I guess, in my life, I've always I won't use the word hate. I don't like a whole lot of structure. I like to, if I have structure, for example, we do a calm under pressure presentation, and I thought, man, to deliver this, I'm going to have all these slides, right? And PowerPoint presentation. And when I presented this PowerPoint presentation, it just wasn't, I just felt so constricted by it. And as soon as I
structure,
got rid of that, and that's been like, I guess, like the story of my life is, coming through lifeguarding, when they started to put too much red tape stuff in there, and they started to take away, putting the onus on the person on the beach to make decisions. That's when I got out. And it's the same with, I guess, even working as a paramedic, as more restrictions start to come in, I find like, man, I don't want that. And that's why starting this business has been so liberating, because now I can create my own thing and put my own unique spin on it. And I don't have to create any restrictions. I don't have to have I guess for any business, you have to have systems in place, but it's like working with an athlete. You're not going to work with that guy the same as that guy. They're two totally different individuals, and so your approach should be totally different. And if you're not bound by like a whole lot of rules and regulations and protocols, well, you're going to have that flexibility. I think where a lot of these athletes in that high performance environment is they are surrounded by protocols and there's the coach and the physio and all these people, and I think the noise can sometimes just get a bit much,
Yeah. And what about the sort of scale? Because I just sort of look at you going, this is so cool. And you're sort of like, it should be taught in schools. Everyone should know this. Where do you see it? What do you think about that with yourself? I mean, it seems that if you keep going on the trajectory you're going with this, then everyone's going to know about Dave Wood and Woody's Movement Workshop, and then everything that comes out of there, right?
Yeah, I just don't even think about it, to be honest. I just keep building. And like, the thing is, you never make it, like, if I'm never satisfied, like, I've worked with some of these elite athletes, but it's like surfing. You want more. It's like you go for a good surf and then you just want to go out again and you want to get better. And it's like, if you ever think that you've made it, well, you're just, you're selling yourself so short, because you never make it. And I put a bit of pressure on myself to build this thing up and build it in a way that's sustainable. And like, it's definitely not a linear process. Starting a business has been the biggest challenge of my life. Because I'm not a business orientated person.
Yeah, because the idea of sitting down and doing a GST return, for example, doesn't really fit with the idea of doing what the hell you want, does it?
No, and that's my idea of hell. But what I'm learning very quickly is that you have to bring the right people and surround yourself with the right people who will take care of those things. And that is all about, surrounding yourself by good people. I know, it's so interesting because, the lady down the road who I train her daughter, well, now she's taking care of the books and she's a great person. And then I've got my mate down the road who's an endurance athlete, and he's starting to come in and take a role of the beach training and the breathing training. And so I guess when you surround yourself, by I don't know, good people.
I guess, do you reckon that when you've got passion with purpose, that somehow, it's not magic, obviously, but that sort of begets a situation where...
Yeah, I think just if you have...
Other people are pulled to you.
Yeah. I think, like, if you have a destination and you just, I have, like, a destination in my mind. I want to be the best. It's like, whatever I do, I want to be the best. And so with this, I want to be the best. So that's the destination. And then when you know the destination, you have that drive and passion, and it's like there's obstacles that get in the way. Well, you either go around them or you go right through them. I think that's like something powerful that people want to be a part of. And that's where I feel like this business, I have that real intense focus of where I want to get to, and I'm nowhere near there yet. So it's I guess it's like you hear that saying, it's you got to enjoy the process. And if even if I'm just like thinking about the end result of where I want to get, while my head's out the game, what I should be doing is just putting the processes in place, making sure that I'm getting better every day, and I'm learning to run a business with better efficiency. And so, you just you got to enjoy the process and focus on the process. And I think, I think everything will take care of itself if I do that properly.
Yeah, when I started writing books, I started thinking, well, my filter was if I can, because you don't really have any confidence. You haven't written any books before, let alone for the public on health. I was sort of like, well, if I can help one single person, that was my filter. Then I'd be worth it. And I guess given I could live with that scenario, it's all good from there. And actually, of course, you do way, way better.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's it's I don't know, man. It's like we're all just trying to do good shit, aren't we? It's like we're all deep down. We all just want to be good at something, and I want to be good at life. And this is like a big part of my life now, is running this business and working with athletes. And I want to be good at it. And I want to offer, something that's quality.
Yeah, man. Well, just keep up the great work. I've just loved talking to you. So thanks, Dave.
Yeah, Legend Grant, it's been a good chat, man, and I'm very interested in what you do as well and picking your brain. So maybe I should start a podcast and get people like yourself in, and because it's a great way to learn. And yeah, I'm listening to podcasts all the time, and you mentioned the Huberman podcast, which is actually like really can get quite it's very science based and very. But he is so great at giving. He goes into the science and the research, but he also gives the practical skills to be able to integrate into your life, and that's what I love about his work. So
he's a brilliant lecturer from just the couch, really.
Yeah. And so for the listeners, jump on his podcast. They're amazing. But I mean, there's so many good. I was listening to a podcast with Led Hamilton. Do you know who he is?
Yeah. Big wave surfer, big on underwater breath work, and
very innovative human being. I just find that guy incredibly fascinating because everything that he's done has just been from his own practical experience. It's just been getting out there and getting shit done and like not worrying about what everyone thinks. And I think we can be too boxed in by the research and the science, and it's like, man, we just got to sometimes get out there. Like the most, I feel like when I'm the most creative is when I'm just in the gym, just trying to work things out with my own body and like. We can. I think we can be too stagnated if we wait around for research, and because that, even with the breathing stuff, it's taken 10 years for that research to trickle down into, and we're just starting to see that now to trickle down into that performance environment. So,
let alone an actual health environment.
Yeah,
where it's needed even more. I think that's what my encouragement for, especially for any health professional or any budding sort of health coach, health professional. PT, anything like that, I think you made a good point there. It starts with yourself, right? Have a go.
Oh, 100%. It starts with yourself. That's where this whole process for me started, was starting with, trying to sort it out and fix myself. We rely on other people too much. It's just like that tablet we're talking about. You start relying on the tablet, or, you start relying on the doctor. And of course we need those people in those medical interventions, but we've got to reflect on ourselves and work some of the stuff out ourselves, because like we're equipped to deal with all this stuff,
Yeah, and I think, you said this in paramedicine. One thing that we're good at in medicine is fixing up acute trauma. Like you're not going to sort that out yourself.
No.
And we've got a great system, hospital system that does that. But on the other side of thing, which is poor mental and metabolic health, the hospital's not going to sort that for you.
Absolutely, it's not. And you've hit it on the head there. Like, the medical field is like, we have to give them so much props for what they're doing in terms of acute intervention from things like trauma, because it's incredible what they're doing. And but there's this whole other part where we're relying on the health system too much, and you're just going to get very frustrated.
Yeah. And let's just finish with that bit that you started with, which is the last, I can't remember how you described it exactly, that last 20 years of your life battling, not living.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think, we get to, I think with our health, we just have to we have to look ahead a little bit. What do we want to be like in 10 years' time? What do we want to be like in 20 years' time? And we've got to set up for it now. We've got to start being healthy and not letting these food companies and these, we're getting poisoned by these people. Like, they are poisoning our food, and we're allowing it to happen. Not only are we allowing it to happen, but we're giving it to our kids. Like, I drive around and 7 o'clock in the morning, you drive past the dairy and there's a kid walking out of the dairy with a pie and a V drink, and that's what he's having for breakfast. And like, that kid is going to have some serious problems with learning. That kid's going to have some serious problems with his breathing, with his sleep, with his ability to be a high-functioning human being. And it's an insidious effect. The stuff is, it has an insidious effect, the food that we're eating, the stuff that we're watching, and it catches up, it catches up with you.
Yeah, we just did a study. We went and photographed the school lunch boxes of the whole set of year 6, end of primary school kids.
It's shocking.
I actually cried. Like, it's whatever you think the ultra-processed food environment looks like, it's worse than you think.
Yeah, I've got I get really this is where we need to take onus on ourselves, because I mean, look, we've just been through, or we're going through this COVID thing, right? And the health authorities, they haven't come out and mentioned anything about this stuff, about how we can actually improve our health with things like what we've talked about in this podcast. What a great opportunity to come out and start talking about some of this breathing stuff, some of this cold water therapy and sauna use, and, getting reconnected. And what a great opportunity, but nothing.
Yeah,
nothing
100% nothing in the midst of a mental health crisis, a metabolic health crisis, and a pandemic, all of which can be reduced by sorting out your diet, getting fitter, moving properly, connecting with nature, breathing in a way that's productive, not the other way around, and exposing yourself to stress that's hormetic improves you. We haven't heard anything on any of those.
No, and once you open your mind to, once you open yourself to that stuff, that becomes the addiction, is feeling good. It's like, man, I'm getting good sleep, and the fuel that I'm putting in my body is making me feel so good. I feel so much more focused. Well, that ends up becoming addictive. Not all the other crap that we're shoving in, the food and the, this stuff, the screen stuff, and the being healthy becomes very addictive.
Yeah, and it's available to everyone right now, and especially in a time on the planet we've never had more resources. Like, what are we doing as a species?
It's totally is available. And man, I live at Piha Beach, and I'm surrounded by, there's waterfalls, there's the black sand, there's the ocean, there's the Waitakere Ranges. Man, this is like, in New Zealand, we have the easiest access to this stuff. But it's, in saying that, it's not easy for everyone. Like working in the ambulance, you see, low socioeconomic. There's, we're living amongst poverty for sure. We just don't see it. You see it in the ambulance service, and you see these kids that are unfortunately exposed to this, and exposed to violence, and exposed to this processed crap. How are they supposed to, the stuff we're talking about?
How do you get a resilient, healthy mind and body when that's happening?
Yeah, I think there's information. Look, on social media, you can go and find it all. But I think the healthy are getting healthier, and the unhealthy are getting unhealthier. If you're very healthy and you're the type of person who's going to go out and look for this stuff. Well, I guess the low socioeconomic communities, it's a lot harder for them. It's a lot more difficult, especially when you're young and you're not being brought up, you're being dragged up, and you're having the stuff shoved into you. It's very difficult to break that pattern. So this is why we talked about this stuff needs to be in the schools, because kids are they'll absorb this information and they understand it. We just got to get it out there in a way that's Yeah,
it was interesting. One time I was the Chief Health and Nutrition Officer for the Ministry of Education, which was a job I was terrible at, and it was a terrible place to work. But we once did a survey. We went and talked to a bunch of parents from all sorts of different places about what they felt they wanted out of school. And the parents, overwhelmingly from every type of neighbourhood, from high deprivation to quite wealthy, were like, we want them to learn the skills to be healthy and happy in their life. That's what they wanted out of the system.
Yeah, that's what the parents want. But
yeah, I
guess there's a lot of parents out there who are educated, who are very educated, but they're not getting it either. They are, they have fallen complacent to, some of the things that are making us so unhealthy in terms of lifestyle disease. And the big one, again, is the food, the convenient food. And, man, it's shocking just to think the stuff that they're putting in our food, the emulsifiers, the ingredients that you can't even read, and these energy drinks and the fizzy and all this crap. It's like, we were not designed to put that stuff in our bodies. Your digestive tract was not designed to deal with that. It was just not designed for it.
Yeah, I've got a few thesis students working on the moment, a thing I'm calling the human interference scoring system, or the HISS. It's sort of trying to get a new way of discovering how to categorize food. I sort of tried to make 4 categories. Like at one end I have, food that was recently alive in nature. running around, flying, swimming, growing somewhere. And the next one is food that was available to pre-industrial populations. Some fermented food includes milk and cheeses and those sorts of things. The next one's processed, which is, well, you've made it yourself, but it's still got some processed food in it, flours and that sort of thing. And the fourth one is just ultra-processed food, that category that I think the estimates are that's about 70% of what we eat in this country comes from stuff that was made in a factory.
Yep.
It's in packets. It doesn't rot. Your grandmother wouldn't recognise it. And, it's just fake industrial food.
Yeah, well, I think, with all the information that's out there, I don't think there's ever been a time where we're more confused about what to eat. One guy's telling you that eggs is a superfood, the other's telling you that's it's poison, same with dairy. And so we're so confused. I have clients come to me and they just don't even know what to eat. What should I have for breakfast,
Is that a food company thing that's causing some of that problem, do you reckon?
I think it started back with the food pyramid where we started promoting, where we started promoting grain, and then these big food companies cottoned onto that. Well, if we're promoting grain, let's make some processed, let's mass produce this stuff. Well, how do we mass produce this? We make Cocoa Pops and rice bubbles and cornflakes and, stuff that is broken down straight away into sugar in your body and causes inflammation and, a spike in your blood glucose and, which is awful for you.
Yeah, right. And it's just become normal.
It's become totally normal. You see kids and I talked about low socioeconomic. This is not low socioeconomic. This is like right through, all walks of it's right. It's rife. It's like, I look at, I got what my friends' kids and, so even my own nephews sometimes and nieces are eating it. It's like, man, there's a lot of problems there, with inflammation that's coming from the food, eczema. I think eczema is a big one. That's childhood eczema. We're addressing all these things apart from nutrition.
Yeah, you're rubbing a cream on something that's extensively caused by the fact you're eating actually non-food. It's getting through the gut because of the leaky gut, and the immune system's mounting a response against this non-food, which is an entirely normal thing to do, right? But it might manifest itself as eczema. You'll go and get a corticosteroid to run on your skin to sort it out.
Yeah, and I guess, you're right, man. It's kind of troubling, eh? It's like when you think about how backwards we've become in terms of, just the simple things, not really knowing what to do as a human anymore to optimize health.
Yeah, well, I mean, rheumatoid arthritis is another classic example. An autoimmune inflammatory condition. We'll take some anti-inflammatories. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
When inflammation is a completely normal response to things in the right environment.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's interesting, man. And I think for me, I just make sure that what I'm putting in my body is going to be building me up. And, I guess being exposed to working in the ambulance for 12 years, I've seen the end result and it scares me. It scares me to think that I could spend the last 20, 30 years of my life trapped in my body, and I'm definitely not going to be there, man. I want to be surfing when I'm 70, 80 years old. I want to be high functioning. I look at my parents and they are, in their mid-70s, and my old man's out on his bike for 3-4 hours a day. And
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I'd imagine this sort of end of life being actually being surfing somewhere. I'd probably be in Tairua, you'll be at Piha, and we'll be quite old, and we'll just be paddling, and I don't know, we'll just might come in one day.
That's the ultimate. Yeah, bro. I think we should cut it there. That's the ultimate. Yeah.
That's the end of it. Thanks, David. Oh, how do people? I've started following on your Facebook page. What is Movement Workshop? How else can people find out what you're up to?
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah, it's actually, we've just changed it. WMW_integrated_training. Yeah. But yeah, it is. It's Woody's Movement Workshop. Yeah. WMW.co.nz is the website.
Yeah.
Cheers, bro.
You've been listening to Prevention is Cure, brought to you by Precure.com, with me, Professor Grant Schofield. At Precure, we're developing a way to help medicine help change the world. We're filling that gap. We're helping train health coaches and mental health coaches. We're bringing short but effective behavior change programs over 29 days to you to help you learn for yourself and help others as well be healthier. We're trying to create a community of like-minded people like you who want to use the latest science and practice to change lives for the better. Join us at Precure.com. Get involved in our communities. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Precure.com.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight.